You are listening to the Beyond the High Road podcast with Shelby Milford, episode number 162. Stay tuned. Hey, everybody. What's going on? So, if you've ever felt so exhausted by your family's separation or by trying to keep hope alive that you've thought about just stepping back or even disappearing into the background, this episode is for you. Today, we're going to be talking about quiet quitting. Not the workplace buzzword, but what it means for us as alienated parents. That urge to stop sending texts, stop showing up, stop putting your heart out there, maybe because it feels pointless or perhaps too painful to keep fighting. But here's the twist. This episode isn't about telling you to keep pushing no matter what, like all the professionals and everybody will tell you. And it's also not about urging you to disappear without a trace. The real win isn't about doing more or less. It's about purposeful prioritizing, getting clear on what truly nourishes your well-being and reclaiming your energy with intention so that you can live, heal, and even find joy no matter what is happening with your child right now. We'll explore how burnout can make quiet quitting feel like the only way out and why it sometimes only deepens the pain, and what changes when you pivot to prioritizing yourself on purpose with self-respect and compassion. If you're ready to move forward beyond survival mode and make your next steps truly count, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. So let me just go through right now what the episode's going to look like. I've got 4 main sections to this. First, we're going to talk about burnout, why it happens. We'll talk about the old way, quitting coming from pain. And then we're going to talk about self-respect and compassion and shifting into the new way. And then we're going to talk about purposeful prioritizing and then practical steps. And then that'll be it. Okay? So let's talk honestly for a second about the drive to never give up. If you're like most alienated parents, you probably know what it's like to be told by family, professionals, by the voice in your own head that you just have to keep trying, keep reaching out, keep fighting for the relationship no matter what. And maybe you have. For weeks, months, or even years, you've sent cards, tried new court actions, therapy strategies, or looked for one more way for you to prove that you still care. It makes sense. It feels like the stakes are high, right? The stakes are high. But here's the thing that nobody tells you about. When you pour energy into something over and over and the outcome doesn't change, depending on your mindset, it can chip away at you. Relentless effort starts to backfire when the cost is your own spirit. Maybe you find yourself feeling more irritable, impatient, or angry than you ever expected. Maybe you start beating yourself up and thinking, if I just did more, or if I did it differently, I could fix this. Maybe you get stuck in that torturous loop of every little hope or action met by silence or rejection until it feels pointless. It's exhausting. Over time, you might start to feel helpless, like nothing you do matters. Sometimes the exhaustion doesn't feel like a dramatic hit, right? It's more of that slow, gnawing drain. Just getting through the day feels overwhelming. Even the smallest reminders can flood you with frustration or grief. That's the truth about burnout. It usually sneaks up on you. It starts with good intentions, with love and determination. But if it goes unchecked, it leaves you aggravated, hopeless, and wondering if you have anything left to give. Not just to your child, but to yourself. That's why it's so important. I'm offering that it's so important for you to step back and ask, is this endless pushing really helping me, or is it just wearing me down? Because there is a better way. We're going to talk about it now. But first, we're going to talk about a common and unhelpful way that many parents I know solve for their burnout. Okay. And that is wanting to quit, throwing your hands up. So I actually didn't even define. Some of you, if you guys maybe remember 3 or so years ago, there was a big deal around quiet quitting. And quiet quitting, the term was originated, I believe anyway, for the workplace. Like I saw it a bunch on Instagram and on social media, right? Quiet quitting is a way, I guess, for workers, employees to create healthy boundaries by working the hours they're supposed to work, basically punching in a time clock, punching out, and leaving work at work and having your own personal space, time boundaries, right? It was a way to feel like, or it is a way to feel like you have some agency and some limits to what other people can put on you. on your schedule, on your responsibilities list, especially without being compensated, paid for it. Okay. So that's where the term really originated from. I believe actually did not do a search on it, but that's my impression anyway of that. But for us as alienated parents, I see quiet quitting in a little bit more of a damaging way, like I was just talking about with your burnout. It builds over time where you feel like you're just doing all this stuff and does it really matter? And it starts really innocently, like, should I not do this? Should I? Then you do it, but then you start to notice some resentment building up. And then you notice that you are feeling taxed and feeling worn out. And so that's the quitting I'm talking about. Okay. So for this episode, I'm going to reference that why quitting is the old way. When quitting comes from pain. Many parents that I speak with on a very frequent basis, like in consult calls and what have you, when they schedule their discovery call, I have them put down the one thing that's bothering them the most right now. And that I read those before each clarity call with somebody. This is one of the most probably common topics that people bring up is, I just don't know whether I want to move, whether I should just stop. I need closure. I feel like I've done all the efforts for months, years sometimes. There's been no material change. What is this doing to me? Should I just cut them off completely? How much is too much? How much is enough? All of those kinds of questions come into play in those first-time submissions. So I see it. I see it all the time. And I know that I've been there too. In fact, the reason that I wanted to do this episode today, and I kept thinking, haven't I done an episode on this? Haven't I talked about quiet quitting? And maybe I have, because I looked back over the last year anyway of episodes and I didn't find it, but I could have maybe addressed it in an episode titled something else, like the pre-July, when I started doing things more focused, searchable, and what have you. So I don't know. It could be there, but I know I have different things to say about it now. But I will say, the reason I just told you that was because I think about this often for me and my own situation with my daughter. Am I here like intentionally withdrawing? And am I doing that as a way to protect myself? Is it coming from fear? Or am I just doing what I know to be purposeful and true for me? I think about that so often when I feel maybe unaffected by something that maybe it could have affected or I know affects other parents, or when I am choosing myself over maybe doing something for my daughter, whatever it is, I ask myself this question. I'm very aware of this because I don't want to quietly quit when it's coming from pain or desire to protect myself because I'm fearing being hurt, right? Where everybody else will tell you to protect your heart, to take cautious measures or whatever they want to say. And I just don't, you guys know if you've listened before that I don't subscribe to that mindset because that's encouraging you and myself even to be acting coming from fear. Protecting your heart to me feels like that there's something that you need to avoid. But if you look at the thoughts and your mindset, like your beliefs around that, it could be really helpful. I want to always encourage you to dive in to the pain, not to cause unnecessary suffering for yourself, but to dive into the pain because the worst that can happen is that you feel a vibration in your body. It's the story that you're telling yourself that really probably needs attention because whatever you're feeling or thinking comes from the story that's in your brain. Therefore, you have not only the option, but I would offer the responsibility to manage those thoughts so that you can use them to work for you rather than against you. Okay. You guys have heard me talk about that before, but I think it was really important that I did explain that because I believe that when you're quitting anything or trying to go around it because you're trying to avoid pain, like I've been talking about so much the last few weeks, it will produce a result that you don't want. Okay. So here are the unhelpful motivations that might be going on for you if you're withdrawing coming from pain. Okay. Withdrawing due to hopelessness will be one of them. Nothing matters. So why do I keep trying? Acting from resentment or exhaustion might be one. It's pointless. No one appreciates my effort. This is what it would sound like if you wanted to give up. Okay. And that's really what it is. When silent or quiet quitting coming from pain is really the desire to throw your hands up out of exhaustion, exacerbation, and wanting to just forget it. I just want closure instead because you have been burning yourself out all the way up. The situation's been burning. I'm not trying to blame you here. You know what I'm saying? Feeling invisible or erased. Who knows if my child even gets my cards, my letters, my gifts, Why continue to torture myself? Why do I continue to be tortured? Right? They're torturing me. It's torturing me, however you might say it, right? Disguising self-protection as disengagement. If I don't care, I can't be hurt. Sort of attitude. Like, it's fine. I don't care. I don't care about. I see this so often, especially I'm going to overgeneralize here and say I see this a lot with the dads. Not all dads, but I see where they're like, well, if I just don't care, then I can't be hurt. So I'll just go busy myself elsewhere. But usually, because we're talking about your kids, that is a little fib that you might be telling yourself and wanting to believe, but probably fully don't. So giving up out of despair is another way. Feeling powerless, invisible. I kind of just touched on that. Or convinced that nothing will ever change. Letting withdrawal be shaped by anger, hopelessness. Why bother? My efforts don't matter anyway. Allowing outside circumstance. The whole summary of that is allowing outside circumstances to dictate your value, effort, and hope. Okay? So those are all your motivations. How it feels when you're quitting coming from pain. Emotional numbness, you might feel completely numb. You might feel bitter, a loss of agency, like that you have no actions to take, your efforts are futile. You may have ongoing rumination, which is actually an action, but shame, regret, that kind of stuff. The next one I put here was guilt, self-judgment. Am I abandoning my child? Sort of talk, right? I already said regret. Fixating on what's lost or unfair rather than the possibility for change or noticing how the changes have already taken place, some of them. Deep chronic fatigue, both physically and emotionally. That's how it feels when you're quitting coming from pain. Okay? How it manifests: disengagement from meaningful actions or support networks. Avoiding calls, missing any sort of social gatherings, or if you're in any support groups or counseling groups, quietly doing it a lot of the times, just deciding to disappear from them, just not showing up for a while. And if you've been going for a while, you may be getting calls or texts from the people that you go there with, and maybe you're not answering them. Maybe the calls or texts, I still do this, and I don't think that I'm doing that out of doing it from pain or wanting to disengage with the world. Well, sometimes I do it to disengage because it's a lot of energy for me sometimes. But I think that is one of those leftover symptoms or actions that has just still been playing on, where I probably should give it more attention than I have, but I'm aware of it. So disengagement from family events, any sort of whatever you were gung-ho about before, and all of a sudden now you're just like, oh, I just lost interest, All or nothing thinking is another way that this manifests, right? Quitting coming from pain. Going from fighting hard to disappearing entirely. Crickets. The all or nothing thinking is like that you either have to be all in or all out, and there's no gray area, when most of the time you don't have to completely shut everything out, right? But that's how our brains work coming from trauma. Another thing that we do is we sabotage new opportunities for connection by believing it's too late or it's not worth the risk. This is such a common one, and this was definitely my thing. It's not worth the risk. It's not worth me putting myself out there only to get looked at funny, judged, whatever. It also manifests in increased isolation as a result of those actions above, and living in survival mode, always waiting and never replenishing you. Those of you who are feeling like you're in a perpetual waiting game, I would say it definitely would be helpful for anybody that feels like they're just waiting on things to happen outside, for you to start advocating for yourself and start taking time for yourself, not to go blow off steam, but taking time to really replenish yourself. So instead of quitting coming from pain and from burnout, I want to offer that you in your own life emphasize and start focusing on self-respect and compassion. Quiet quitting doesn't have to be about giving up. It can be an act of self-kindness. By stepping back from strategies and pursuits that bring only pain or burnout, you're honoring your own limits and needs. So, what I'm offering here is the shift between it's all or nothing, right? I need to be going, 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 trying all the things. I have a mom right now. I have a few moms actually right now who are in the middle of reunification therapy, just ordered by the court. So it's another one of those things, another one of the checks on the list of things that they're going to try because why not? But the mom I was referring to, she right now, or she's been for a while, like, none of this is working. I should just give up completely. When is enough enough? Because of what I'm talking about here. We've not used the word burnout in our sessions together, but that's exactly what's happening because you want to, out of stress response, fight, flight, you want to do all the things and fight for your kid. And if you're doing that and only that, you will burn out. And so when you get to that point where it's like, you don't even realize that it's that slow build of exhaustion, feeling turned down, rejected, denied, and all that stuff. And you sort of swallow it, white knuckle it. And after so much time, your body just gives out and is like, forget this. We can't do this anymore because of the way that you're believing, the goals that you're setting for yourself, your expectations on each effort that you're doing and your efforts as a collective whole. It's really important instead to look at those expectations and start emphasizing self-respect and compassion for yourself. And when you do that, your shift into purposeful prioritization is going to restore your emotional boundaries, right? Instead of chasing connection at the cost of your well-being, being intentional is about drawing loving boundaries. It's a way to advocate for yourself and oftentimes a way to advocate for your child by purposely prioritizing as opposed to driving yourself into burnout, which does nothing for anybody because it's all or nothing thinking. And that's actually your all or nothing thinking will turn into all or nothing sort of actions. And for you to want to throw your hands up, which will only strengthen the case of the alienating parent, whatever they're saying about you. So instead, you want to slow and steady wins the race. Small, consistent actions, like whoever coined that phrase, dripping love, that, as opposed to the full water faucet on, which is going to run you out of energy, stamina, out of all the things. This way that I'm offering to you guys is also going to help you to reclaim your agency. Purposefully prioritizing is reclaiming your power to choose where you want to invest your energy. You decide what's healthy, sustainable, and truly yours rather than getting stuck in roles of endless striving or rejection. Okay? It also facilitates your healing. Purposeful disengagement gives you space for reflection, acceptance, and the opportunity to rebuild outside of the identity of the rejected parent. This allows for personal development, the pursuit of joy even, and reconnection to a sense of agency. It's going to renew your energy because now you are the one that's allocating your time and it's not being allocated for you. That's how alienation works if you're just succumbing to it, if you're at the effect of it. You're just waiting around. It's a waiting game of the professionals, the lawyers, the alienating parent, your kiddos even. You're just waiting on everybody else. Instead, this is you deciding. This is you allocating your time to what you know matters most. It fully restores your sense of empowerment, in my mind anyway. Basically, I would like for you to consider that doing it this way, it isn't the end of your story. It's a shift in focus. With the energy you once spent fighting uphill battles, now you can heal, rebuild joy, and create meaning outside of the struggle. Replenishing yourself so that you can go back in at your, I was about to say at your leisure, but that's not what I mean. When you choose, when you know it's right for you. Okay. And it also doesn't, when I just said that, I just also want to emphasize too that it doesn't mean that you need to take a set break from it, away from it all, because again, it's going to start to feel like you're disengaging completely from your own kids and your own role, your own purpose, goals, whatever. Instead, it's just a matter of where I'm going to put my time when. Okay, so the motivation and mindset behind purposeful prioritizing It's choosing to conserve energy for what's truly constructive, right? Healing, self-growth, relationships that feel nurturing and feel rewarding, actions that feel rewarding, recognizing when efforts become self-harm, and then being able to step back for recovery. And so what I mean by that is often we will get stuck sort of like in a glitch on one outcome that we want to make happen. And so we keep trying all the different ways, right? Because your brain's telling you, well, if we just would try this way, or if we just try that way, we just need to make this happen, because we get so dead set on whatever outcome it is we want, whether it's, to be invited to your kid's wedding, or to have them respond to you, or to have a visit come through, or whatever it is. And so you try all these efforts, and then it starts to become destructive, self-destructive for you. And also it takes away your sense of dignity, because now you're stooping to levels. Sometimes it gets to this place, stooping to levels that you didn't ever think you would in order to get something done, which causes a lot of friction and dissonance inside of you. Okay. So what I'm asking is that when you notice that they become self-harm, acknowledging it, and then allowing yourself to step back for some recovery and for some refocusing. Setting boundaries to respect your own limits without closing the door on quote unquote hope or unconditional love. So the whole point of prioritizing purposefully is so that you can regather, regroup yourself, and start building on your own self-respect. Because that's one of the things that I think we lose during this whole disaster. Not only are others disrespecting you, but then you start disrespecting yourself many times without knowing it. You start going over your own boundaries or your own desires for yourself because you're trying everything to make things work, which only makes your whole world sort of implode. The next one is kind of intuitive here, is wanting to demonstrate to yourself, model to yourself and to your child what self-respect and resilience look like. Even from afar, even if they're not seeing your day in, day out acts to respect yourself, have agency, recover, and prioritize your healing and your growth even. Maybe they don't see that action by action, but they will see the ultimate, like the end result at some point. They'll feel that energy. Whether it's on social media or through the grapevine, whatever, it will be a way for you to demonstrate, model what that looks like for them, because they're probably, I'm again overgeneralizing here, but they're probably not seeing that. They're definitely not seeing that side of you from where they're standing, right? Because what they're being fed, told. And also maybe they're not having that modeled to them. So they don't see what self-respect, resilience, and strength and choosing yourself and healing and all that stuff look like for their own selves. So you've got to be the leader in that. Doing a very conscious inventory of what actually serves your well-being, healing, and overall life. Okay, that's another way that the motivation mindset sort of shows up for you when you choose purposeful prioritizing. Intentionally choosing where to engage and where to step back, not out of defeat, but from honoring your limits and long-term values. I think I want to repeat this because this whole episode, I want to highlight that we're not stepping back or moving away or needing closure or doing it out of defeat, hopelessness, fear, any of that. Instead, we're stepping into an area of growth because we're doing it to honor ourselves and our children and everybody involved. Okay. So it's a very slight shift. I mean, it's a huge shift, but it seems slight. It may look the same, you quietly quitting may look the same on the outside, but the way that you feel inside makes all the difference. Your motivations and mindset behind it are everything. Okay. Empowerment. Okay. Intentionally choosing where to engage and where to step back. Empowerment for the win is about shifting the focus back to yourself, your healing, growth, and future, no matter what the external situation is. How it feels, choosing purposeful prioritizing, it feels like relief. It feels like clarity. It feels like reduced self-judgment, even in the face of unchanging circumstances with your kiddos or unchanging circumstances with anything that's going on outside of you. Okay. It feels like empowerment, reclaiming the choice over where your energy and love go. where you're, I mean, I hope I would offer that you would always feel love, but where you're really aiming your conscious everyday energy efforts, right? It also feels like, well, there's a gradual return of your joy and openness to new experiences, even the small ones. An excitement for what's to come returns to your life when you choose this way, as opposed to quitting, quietly quitting. You feel less guilt. I would offer really hardly any newly created guilt when you're living this way, less self critique, more trust in the healing process. You'll have more trust that it's possible, that healing is possible, that things will work for you. You know, that's another common unhelpful belief with new clients of mine is, I don't know, it might work for you and for everybody else, but they're different than me. And my case is so bad. I just think that healing won't happen for me, not in the cards for me. And when you take on this new way, then your emotional energy returns, making room for joy, connection, and hope in the other areas of your life, right? Or like inspiration for the other areas of your life. Where right now, maybe if you're burned out, you're probably not feeling inspired by much. You're probably feeling hopeless and disconnected, and perhaps it feels really dark for you right now. Peace, even when things remain unchanged with your child, because you know you are honoring your own needs and your own boundaries. There will be peace there as opposed to all this emotional turmoil and cognitive dissonance about the actions you're taking, and you're taking them because people have told you to do it or because your shame and guilt are telling you to do it, even though you need the rest and you keep going, going, going and running yourself into the ground. This way, you offer and you create the environment for you to feel peace because you know you are honoring your needs. You know you are creating healthy boundaries for you, not for other people, but for you. And we all crave, we may not say this, we may not think it on the forefront of our mind, but we all crave that kind of structure of like knowing where, you end and the world begins, or where somebody, even in relationships, where your responsibility is and theirs is. So doing this for yourself, changing the way that you're going about, because oftentimes we burn out because we tell ourselves that, like I was just saying, that, oh, we have to do this because if not, this is the only way we can prove to our kid that we're enough and that we love them. But that actually is only proving to your kid and to yourself that you don't love you. Funny, not funny, because you're not prioritizing yourself. And if there's no you, there's no hope for reconnection because you're depleted. All right, how it manifests. Mindful reduction of your efforts that are draining, focusing on what you can control or change. You notice that you're not draining yourself when we're burning ourselves out. We're not really choosing anything consciously. We're just going, 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 right? But now you're choosing to not spin your wheels on futile efforts, things that don't really make a difference. Focusing on what you can control and what you can change in your immediate surroundings. Creating routines and rituals that restore you, therapy, hobbies, connecting or reconnecting with the people in your life, creating a safe environment for yourself. Continuing small gestures when and where they feel right without attachment to your outcome. Okay? Small gestures so that you're not doing them because you think that you should or because that's how you have to prove to them. It's almost like running on fumes, Maybe this will work. Maybe that'll work. Then maybe this will show them what blah, blah, blah. But sometimes your heart's not really in it and you're just going, going, going because you're in fight, flight response, you know? And so you're just trying to show them, show them, show them, show them. And it's not coming from the heart at that point. I mean, ultimately it is, but you're not feeling it, which is going to ruin your entire experience and cause you to feel resentful. And that's what will in the end come to bite you on the butt is taking the actions, like positive, quote unquote, positive actions that are causing resentment in you because you're not getting, because it's when you're feeling resentful after taking however many actions, it's because you have this secret expectation or maybe many secret expectations on some outcome that thus far has not happened. And when I say this, I just want to be careful because I just sounded like it here. I don't want to put it in your mind that your effort, no matter what effort you take, it's not going to be fruitful. I don't believe that at all. I just believe truly that slow, steady wins the race, right? Doing things consistently on an energy output that is sustainable for you is everything. It's like whenever I started doing these episodes, will be the fourth year. Can you believe it, you guys? Well, this is starting the fourth year, so it's been 3 years. I was so scared I wasn't going to keep up with doing the weekly episodes. I was like, oh my gosh, it seems like such a commitment. And I didn't know how long I was going to do it. Honestly, I wasn't sure if I was going to make it to 10 episodes. And so here we are now, way past that, right? But I remember reading a bunch about however often you choose to do your podcast episodes, consistency is everything. Being consistent and having that be sustainable for you, even if you're doing it once a month or once every other month, have that known to you, like in your agenda moving forward. And also then you want to put that out there to the world, set the expectation for your own actions. And I truly believe that this is the way when it comes to any relationship, really. Have your actions be sustainable. And that doesn't mean that you can't change your mind and regroup, redecide at any point throughout. But what is sustainable? What feels good for you now? Start there. And that's what you choose, and you stick with that moving forward. That's what I think that purposeful prioritization is about. It's not about needing to quietly quit or to like put it out of your mind and have like black, white. Instead, it's how can I continue my efforts, drip to drip love, and do it in a way that is sustainable for me, not comparing to all the other parents, because then you're going to go back to, am I doing enough? Is it not enough? Blah, 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 blah. It's going to put you on that hamster wheel of comparing out and wondering if you're doing it wrong or whatever. So make it good for you. And then whatever you decide on, keep showing up for that until you decide that you need to maybe there's a reassessment period at some point. Maybe that's not working for you. Maybe you want to go do more efforts to your kiddo or less or whatever that is. Maybe you send one more card a month or in a quarter, whatever it is. But you decide that ahead of time for yourself and then keep that up, as opposed to just throwing your hands up in the middle of the week or whenever you get tired of it, because there's a way for you to manage your mind around that kind of pre-burnout. And it really it's obviously with something where you want to throw your hands up, there was a hidden expectation, and then you want to refocus to why you're doing this for you. I hope that makes sense, because I just kind of threw that in to a very organized outline that I had written down here to try to keep it, for time's sake, way under an hour today. Re-engaging in advocacy or support when refreshed rather than from a place of desperation, because that's where you start to lose your own self-respect, dignity, and all the things. And it feels awful for you. And then later on, you're going to feel regret, exhaustion, and all the things. That's when you have that sort of emotional hangover. What I'm offering here is that you really focus on renewing your energy before you try to go out there and do all the things, right? And be the superhero parent. All right, now I'm going to go to the last segment, which is practical steps for purposeful prioritizing, okay? One is recognition, noticing your internal tone. Are you feeling resentful and helpless, or are you feeling peaceful and empowered? What is the tone going on in your head? How are you talking to yourself? Are you like, this sucks, I just can't seem to figure out a way to make it happen, and they're never returning my calls and yada, 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 and that's what's fueling you? Or is it more, this is what I want to do. I want to send this card because I love my kid. And this is what I've pre-decided for my own self-respect. I'm going to keep my own word to myself. And I'm also going to do this because I want to trip love. And you can also reflect and ask yourself, is this effort truly getting me closer to living fully, or does it feel depleting to me right now? And why? For each. Why is it getting you closer to living fully, or why does it feel depleting? Okay. That will help you to gain some awareness around what actions you take and what results those actions are creating for you. Okay. As opposed to coming from survival mode and going, coming from fight, flight, or maybe even just freeze where you're not going, right? And you're just feeling in the depleted place. Ask why. What have my efforts been thus far? And what was I thinking? What was my intentions when doing those efforts, when taking those actions? For self-inquiry, ask yourself, this is kind of the same as my last question. It's just a different way to ask it. Is stepping back self-advocating, or is it self-punishing? Like when I'm deciding to regroup, and maybe not go and do all the things and burn myself out? Am I stepping back, coming from a place feeling like I want to advocate for myself and love myself? Or am I stepping back to punish myself because I'm telling myself it's hopeless? What's the reason? And that will, again, help you to determine whether or not you take the actions or not. Okay. Reframing it. It doesn't have to mean letting go of whatever actions you were taking, or letting go of the drive, the push to always be going, going, going. It doesn't have to mean that you lose hope. It can be an act of radical self-compassion and agency, right? Selective engagement on your part for your own healing. Selective engagement is where it's at. And you're selecting because you want to prioritize what is good for you, for the outcome of you, and whatever your purposes are moving forward, and also for the long-term outcome of your kiddo. Okay? Mindful action, moving away from autopilot withdrawal to intentional healthy prioritizing. All of these episodes, every single last one of them, is about helping you, offering to help you to move into intentional work and away from autopilot. Because many of us for too long, have been living, acting, believing, thinking on autopilot, right? And that hasn't gotten very good results thus far, is my guess, for most of us. It's a familiar place to live that creates the opposite of safety, okay, for you moving forward, and the opposite of all the good, yummy, gooey, beautiful feelings and results that you want in your life. We want intentional, purposeful, prioritizing sort of actions and advocacy for you in order to demonstrate that to your kid, because like I said, they're probably not getting that over there. They're not seeing you in that light. And also they're not getting that maybe for their own selves. Perhaps, who knows? The for the win part of this whole thing is really focusing and living on your own terms and refusing to let alienation write the story of your life. For the win is you allocating your time and your energy to things that are truly helpful for the long term and are restorative, renewing, and all the things. Okay? It's just becoming aware of your motivations behind anything you decide to do or not do moving forward. Just stop and ask yourself, why am I doing this? What am I telling myself in my head? Am I telling myself that if I do this, that this will be the thing that proves to them? Or am I doing this because I love myself and I love my kid and I love my future me and the life that I'm building? How do I feel when I'm doing it? Because sometimes your why, your real why, is on point. It's like, oh, yeah, I'm good there. But maybe you feel like shit while you're doing the things. And that's when it's really helpful to start looking, okay, there's another thought here, or there's another belief that's running me right now. Even though I know with my higher thinking, this is what I want, there's another expectation that's interrupting and causing a lot of resistance and pain for me. So then it's just really helpful to find that thought. Writing it down would help to get some separation from it and to become very aware, acutely aware of it. Poking holes in that thought, belief. Is it true? Is it really true? Does it have to be true? What else can be true? That kind of stuff. What do I really want? How can I direct my actions towards what I really want? My thoughts towards what I really want? How can I make that thought a belief? Like that. So some other questions you can ask yourself is, why am I considering stepping back? Am I acting out of defeat or self-advocacy, whatever? How does my internal tone, resentful or peaceful, change my daily well-being? It's another helpful one for like motivation, mindfulness moving forward. How does it change when I'm resentful? What happens? How does that show up in my life? Does that bleed into other areas of my life? Or vice versa, when I'm feeling peaceful inside and generating a sense of peace, how does that impact my daily well-being and those around me, right? Because it always spreads outwards. And so, let's see. Another question, and similar to the other ones I asked, is what am I fighting for, and is it serving me and or my child? Where do I feel exhausted, and what could I let go of for now? What are small caring actions that I can do for myself this week, even while you're doing the other things? And also too, I just want to mention that because I was talking about before, like the crappy ways that we feel when we're not advocating for ourselves. The idea obviously isn't to just avoid all the negative feelings, because you're going to feel the emotions that fall under the grief umbrella, right? You might even feel angry or resentful, like I was just talking about. But are my actions backing up and reinforcing that anger, or are they advocating for me and opening up new areas? What are my actions supporting? Are they supporting that anger? Are they supporting that my thoughts, supporting the resentment? Or am I moving myself in a direction that I know that I want to go? You know? You can replace things like striving to create change and instead with ideas of investing in myself, investing in my future. And that future, of course, probably is going to include your kiddo too. So, am I doing that at the cost of myself, like at my own detriment, or am I building right now? Essentially, purposefully prioritizing, when done with intent, it's an act of love, not only for you, but also for your child, even if it's from a distance. And even if that means some silence for, you know, periods of time. And I don't know, it just depends for you. I could help you if you haven't already had a clarity call or a discovery call with me. I can help you determine that, like what that would look like. You're welcome to schedule a call. But yeah, ultimately, this whole mindset shift is really, I want this to feel like an act of love for you and for your child. Even if you right now think that the only way that you can prove your love is by relentless efforts, I promise you that it is going to end up biting you in the butt. So, how can you do this and sustain? All right. Purposeful prioritizing creates a safe space for your healing and for joy and for the possibility of reconnection too in new, healthier feeling ways. All right. As opposed to striving, you're really advocating for and aligning, setting yourself up, future you, and the future status of your relationship with your child. And that can begin, you guys know, the relationship with your child and the health of that, it's all in your brain anyway. It's your thoughts about them. So, in order to start to better your relationship with them, even from afar, prioritize yourself. Okay. All right, y'all. I'm going to go. And I love you guys. And I will see you next week. Okay. Bye.